Is it being live streamed that fast? No, Jim. I know I'm live streaming. All right, here we go. We're gonna get ready. I can't stand that zoom in the bottom left of YouTube. Why do they do that? How do they do that? All right, here we go. Well, first, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is generally a Q&A that we do for people that are active in the Living in the Private program and that are new as well, or wanting to join it. My first question, so what I'm going to do, since we're live on YouTube, I'll be downloading the full video later and then posting it locally to the HISadvocates.org. We're also going to be posting these individually back to YouTube so people can have a breakdown of the questions. And so they can kind of get their minds wrapped around what's going on and so forth. The first question I want to put out there for everybody that is coming on is it's an important one. The government is hitting us up in every element of taxation, meaning the corporation called the United States, located in the District of Columbia. That's 9 UCC 3078. So for people that are new to this channel, they're going to kind of see what that is when they go up and look at it later, and they're going to be like, oh wow, it really is in the law in the District of Columbia. And it's also in for people that say, well, that's Uniform Commercial Code, that's not law, it's also in USC. So my point I'm trying to make is there's the level of taxation against the United States citizen is just unparalleled, and right now with the elements of what they're trying to do and just inciting another war, World War III, and bringing Israel into this. It's not just getting interesting. It's getting biblical and so forth. But the first question that I wanted to realize, because I always hear people that and they don't have solutions. His advocates, we have solutions. People don't realize the things in which they need to be preparing for in their lives. Like, for example, it's new tax, unrealized capital gains. So if you're a United States citizen and you have a property registered in the county recorder and the property is registered in your name and you have not moved from the property, it's a property that you're going to stay in forever, they're going to do a 20% unrealized capital gains against the individual owner of the property. Guess what? They can't do that against a foundation. So when you have a real property and this property is now owned by the foundation has no lawful requirement to do an unrealized capital gains or a capital gains upon sale in that property. And so look, I'm not a CPA. I'm not sitting here trying to back out of the conversation and try to take away from the element of how exciting that news just was. It's just a fact. As a licensed real estate broker with thousands of transactions in the loan business under my belt, understanding the chain of title probably better than a lot of people, including attorneys, an unregistered, private, unincorporated foundation that owns the real estate is an untaxable entity. Now, does that mean the government won't try to play games down the road and try to associate? It doesn't matter who owns the real estate. What is the real estate? And this is what the guys that rule the world do. These are some of the strategies in which they put into place for themselves. These trusts, these unincorporated private trusts. So we're doing something next level above that. It's a private humanitarian foundation, belongs to God. It's even the IRS code says that these types of entities do not need to file a return, hence therefore do not need to pay taxes, hence therefore, because they are private, belong to God, they're in a church classification. But again, I don't care what the IRS says. The IRS is not my daddy. And a lot of people are going, wow, Kelby, I can't believe you said the IRS is actually a collection arm of the IMF. The IMF is completely outside of the jurisdiction of the United States in a lot of different respects. But what they do is they put the whole world into debt. And they did that with the United States. And when you get your mind wrapped around the benefits of coming out of that structural system, this is just one. Can you imagine unrealized capital gains? Say you live in a $2 million house, like out here in California, that's nothing. You know, to say that you own a $2 million house, a couple things to take into consideration. When you put it into a foundation or a private church, just like if you were to put it in a 501c3, you have tax exempt status from a property tax standpoint in the county recorder. What? $1 million house in California is about $10,000 a year in property taxes. 2 million, 20,000. Do the math. What is 20,000 divided by 12? You're talking about a $1,800 a month rent payment just on the tax element alone to the county recorder. How do you think this next wave is going to happen? It's because they've increased the valuations of homes nationwide. And when everything drops, they're the main renter, meaning the United States corporation and the three State Street, BlackRock, and, the three major companies out there buying up everything, including each other, at 150% of the value, because they know something's coming. They know valuation is going to change. They know that the only thing that they can do to hang on to these worthless fiat currencies when everything's about to hit the wall is gold, silver, crypto, which they control, which the NSA created, Bitcoin, by the way, if y'all haven't heard that one yet. And then real estate. Those are some major staples that those companies are investing, and they're willing to put up 150% of the value of the house and buy as much property as they can. So they know something is around the corner and imminent. And this is the stuff that HISadvocates has kind of been talking about immensely in the last, couple years. But that's the first question I wanted to get through with people, and why it's important to live in the private and come out and utilize unregistered private foundations versus a public LLC, a public anything. The benefits that because those elements of taxation only happen to U.S. registered entities, and a United States citizen is a United States registration under UCC 9. It's called the birth certificate. That's the U.S. citizen, and you've picked up that position, and you're holding that office of the artificial person. And it's basically a job position. You get the social, that's your employment ID number. See, to be a citizen in the United States, you got to obey the policies, the procedures, and the codes of the United States. And no longer does the law, meaning the Constitution, it doesn't apply to you anymore. It's not protecting you anymore. They don't have to the Bill of Rights isn't something they have to worry about with you, because you've accepted to be an employmentship, which has got an office position and rules, just like you were if you were to go to work for a company. You got to obey the rules if you want to get that check, and that's really what's going on here. So hold on, let's stop that one. So we want to welcome you guys on the YouTube side. We see we got a few comments out there. Thank you, Kelby. Can you please explain the process of recording your land purchase versus registration? MT Pockets, wooden nickel. That's interesting username. That is a loaded question, and I've done it 100 times. And if you look at there's a couple different videos we've posted on YouTube and also on hisadvocates.org explaining that, but I'm going to do my best. I'll get to that, Kristen. Thank you. I'm going to do my best to do a 15, let's say a minute elevator speech on that process of recording your land purchase. So as a real estate broker, how to gain jurisdiction over a piece of property is the DRE puts residential purchase agreements and residential rental agreements out there. And so these words that are on these documents are trademarked and belong to the United States. And so when you're using a real estate broker, you're having an agent in place, and you're using these forms, these are all things that we kind of fail for lack of knowledge. Like, we don't realize that we can actually do a transaction outside of using those forms. It's called a private land purchase agreement. And you can create your own purchase style agreement. So I want to just focus on your question and help you to understand the difference of two deeds. You have deed A, where 99.9% of all the people are recordation on a deed is in the name of a registered organization, like your all caps name, a registered organization, Uniform Commercial Code 9. It's the birth certificate. It is the U.S. citizen, and they own it. So the live born record was your family's. It was given over to the state at the birth. The state took it, put it on a 32-pound watermark banknote paper, put it into the public to make a claim, and nobody came in and made a claim against the BC. The BC now is owned by the state. One of the definitions of birth is abandonment. So they are taking the claim equivalent, the title of the child, and they're putting it into the public on an abandonment certificate. Nobody's coming and making a claim. State owns the product. Secondly, the mother and the father who got a marriage license, there's Supreme Court rulings that when you enter into a marriage relationship with the state owns the product of the union, the children. People don't realize that these things are accurate, lawful, legal, and why CPS can come and take your kid at any time. Plus, the father isn't signing on the live born record. Plus, the mom is saying that she is agreeing to being a guardian, which is what a parent, the definition of a parent is. It's a judicially decreed guardian. So the mom is agreeing to these terms because she's agreeing that she is this person and putting her signature on that live born record. So we fail for a lack of knowledge. I know I went a little overboard, but this stuff is really important to get. And so now that registered organization name is on a deed, the state owns it, not you. Secondly, your recordation is in the name of a joint tenant instead of the proper fee simple, or there's other options. You're using a legal description that's above ground. Who owns the terms within the legal description? The country or the corporation or the Vatican, whoever. I honestly haven't chased that trail down. I don't really care. I know a legal description is above ground. It's territory. It's not a piece of land. And so you've got a recordation in a name that they own and control, or you put it in an LLC. They own and control LLCs. People don't understand that when you create an LLC or a corp or an S corp or C corp, any of these registered organizations, actually, even if there's stock issued in them, the state owns it. The state of Delaware, the state of Nevada, they own those entities. The certificate of stock is nothing but a piece of paper, and just to try to find who the liability is in that corporation in the event the state wants to come after for tax. I need you to think about it that way. And so when you're doing a purchase of a land agreement, the thing that sucks is, and it doesn't really suck because there's workarounds, but is you can't get title recorded in the name of a private foundation. And so you got to make sure you're not putting Federal Reserve notes, because that's how grant deeds are written, for valuable consideration in United States dollars. They use the dollar, symbol that belongs to the United States, and a given amount for valuable consideration of X. Grantor hereby assigns to grantee the property hereby described in Exhibit A, boom, 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 boom. And what you're doing is you're giving these 5 elements of within the deed that you don't own it. You're using a Federal Reserve note. You're using a legal description, and you're even vesting in a tenant format. We fail for a lack of knowledge. Look, I got hoodwinked. Just like everybody else out there, we all get hoodwinked into these structures and systems by these bad guys. And I'm calling them what they are, because they want people to think that that's the way it should be. And as you know, a broker in the state of California, I'm telling you, you can record in any type of format that you wish, and you just have to show a proper way of a deed. And so when you're in a living in the private program, we will actually give you a copy of a grant deed that you can utilize as a template for your property. And we kind of give you form and function of how to do it. But here's the net of it. It's 5 elements. And the deeds of everything prior to like 1950 were pretty much like this, 100%. And this is why we fail, and it's okay. This is why we're learning today, and we're coming through to the other side of this. But we are successfully recording these all over the country, for valuable consideration, by gold, by hand, or with gold, by hand, of an undisclosed amount, grantor, and it could be any name, whoever it is you're trying to purchase from, hereby conveys, sells, whatever, and you're not using the purchaser is not using a registered organization. Purchaser is not using Federal Reserve notes. Purchaser is not using a legal description. Purchaser is not vesting in a joint tenant. Purchaser is a private unregistered entity. Purchaser is using gold, taking the element of Federal Reserve notes out of the equation, whereby the United States is no longer a party to the transaction. So when you're walking into a recorder's office, you have literally right there, you have 2 elements, just like literally when you're walking into the federal court in Santa Ana, California, there is 2 federal courts in there. There's one for the de jure and there's one for the court. I'm not exaggerating. I've seen this with my own eyes from paperwork that was given out by that court on the de jure side and that court on the de facto side, 2 different names, same address. It's the same principle at the registrar's office. So what is the term registrar? It's basically a bank. What is the term of the recorder? Is also the registrar. So the recorder has that same dual principle, just like a judge. When you walk in that court, if you're a U.S. citizen, you don't have access to the Bill of Rights, and they know that. How do they know that? Because of a driver's license, because of you are in their system. It's pretty self-explanatory. And this is why they always have to get subject matter jurisdiction before any indictment or any warrant. They have to prove that the United States corporation has jurisdiction over that living man or that living woman. Now, aside from that, going back to the deed, in that deed, if you record those 5 elements, you're bringing it to the recorders, you're not bringing it to the registrar's office. We are handing over our transactions that are ours and making them theirs by the way that we are vesting, by the style in which we're recording and registering that property. Did you know that if you don't accept the deed on the spot, there's only the seller? I mean, the way that they do these things is pretty nefarious, and you can go to store.hisadvocates.org and you can get a copy of the deed acceptance package just for your own perusal. It's cheap. I think it's still $1 or $20 or something like that. I don't remember. But it's helpful to get your mind wrapped around what a deed acceptance is. That's the other element people are failing. You're not accepting the transaction, and it gets recorded into the public. And this is why they are able to do, from a taxation element, what they do. Nobody bought it. Okay. And it was completely given over to the state at the time that deed was written. And the only person's transaction they need is the sellers. The only signature they need is the sellers. What does the word signature mean? One who can attest to the validity of the instrument. Now, look, there's a lot of people that may say this is poo-poo, that may say this is unrealistic, that may say this doesn't work. I'm telling you it does. And I don't need a broker's license to know the difference of me going in and actually doing and effecting a good deed versus a deed that is above the land, using an entity that they own, that they control, using Federal Reserve notes that they are a party to, using a legal description that is not land. You know what I'm saying? And so hence, therefore, because of every element of trickery by them, you're not even accepting the deed. You're not doing anything in accordance to what you should be doing. And you're using the wrong everything. You really want to be a tenant? Do you? Do you really want to own air? Is that really what you want? You really want to use a fiat worth nothing Federal Reserve note that they are now a permanent party to? Really? That's what 99% of the people are doing. And we think we're purchasing a home, and we're not. You're purchasing an area above land, and you're a tenant at best. And you're registering and giving that deed over to them because you're not accepting a properly formatted deed. Now, empty pockets, that was probably a little too long, but that's a reality check for a lot of people that are out there. And there's people out there that are talking about these land patents. And hey, look, first and foremost, I like Ron Gibson. I like his work that he does. I like that whole element of trying to figure out how to accept a land patent. But people, they're thinking through things wrong. And I'm not saying his work by color of law isn't having form or effect. What I'm saying is how do you accept a land patent when you're not a party to it? Well, the only way is to pull the property out of the county recorder, because that land patent was done to a family or a trust or a name 100 years ago. There is no land patents being written out today. There hasn't been a land patent written out in a long, long time. So if you're not a direct assign from that original land patent, how are you accepting it? You're not, especially when you're doing it in the recorder's office. You're using a substandard, subpar recordation to affect the fact that you're accepting this land patent of a smaller portion or smaller area than the actual land patent is. So maybe having form and effect, I haven't seen any. Maybe having a real change for yourself, I haven't seen it. Why not buy the property, buy the land out of the jurisdiction of the United States, like I did, like I told you, and then withdraw the deed from the county recorder? Now, one of the questions, this is an amazing story I'm about to say. There is no lawful, listen to me, there is no lawful requirement to record a deed in the county recorder. None. I got that question wrong on the broker's exam way back in the day. I'm like, and I just started thinking, what are the ramifications if you're not recording something in the county recorder's office? What does that sound like? What does that end up like? I'm telling you, that's a beautiful thing. And if you are able to withdraw, and it's going to be a fight, they're not letting go of this stuff easy. If you're able to withdraw a piece of property from the county recorder's office, and it's not, the grant deed is not in there, and you're not recording the new grant deed of the sale, who are they going to bill? You're not accepting the deposit of the valuation equivalent, the benefits of the deposit of the deed in the county recorder. You're not accepting the fire and the trash services from the city. You're not accepting the benefits from the city, and not doing a recordation of that deed in the county. What are the ramifications? I want you to think about that, because the success on the other side of that, of removing the property from the county recorder, what are you sitting on now? You're sitting on some patent that the city now doesn't control. The city now has no say, because you're not partaking in that APN, which is the parcel number for that particular property in that particular space in that particular county. Point being, you really want to have form and effect. Get out of the county. And you can't get out of the county until you have a property free and clear of any encumbrances, but you can once you do. And that's a huge thing that we are going to bring forward. We already are bringing forward, but we're going to bring forward with case law to support it, to help people down the road. Our whole next level of everything that we're doing is enforcement, guys. This is going to be a huge change for you guys, his advocates. His advocates, people that go through the living in the private right now, they don't get harassed, they don't get mistreated, they don't get handled wrong. Everything is kosher and cool with all the people going through the living in the private program. We're just gearing up for what they're gearing up for, and we're going to make it so that people are protected all the way through, and we're going to be introducing things to you guys that you never knew really existed. We just shot off our first video on YouTube. You can go and check it out. It was just posted a few days ago. Go under, just click on videos and go to 325. These guys one's active duty law enforcement. He has had an amazing amount of success in getting the departments to move and do anything that he needs. I just posted the video in the chat area. I'm also going to go back and post it into the YouTube chat area. Those guys and I are creating a system that's going to go worldwide on every TV, and people will have the ability to partake in learn how to deal with foreclosure. That guy has been in his house without a payment made since 2008. I'm telling you, they know what they are doing. So on that note, if you have any questions and you're on the Zoom meeting over here, we got about 40 people, 38 people over here, and 16 over on YouTube. Welcome, YouTube. Soon we're going to be doing these live on His Advocates TV. The reason why I still like the YouTube is we got the interaction with the comments and the Q&A, and we were able to answer questions on both sides, on the YouTube and on the Zoom. But we're actually going to be switching from Zoom to GoTo pretty quick here. So there's going to be new links in the next 2 weeks. But let's get to the Q&A. I'm going to go answer the questions over on the Q&A side. And here we go. How does a state citizen, non-U.S. person get a job as an employee for a company that typically requires a W-4 and an SSN? It is only a WABEN from the modified to define a non-resident alien as a state citizen, or is there another way? Aren't we likely to get pushback from HR? Michael, it's the truth. Every company is a little bit different. What we're finding is the smaller the company is, the more amenable they are. The larger the company is, the more familiar with the WABEN they are. My first strategy would say try to, even at the federal level, we have contractors that are coming and going back with their foundations and getting paid through their foundations from any level, truck drivers, you name it, contractors for the federal government, you name it. Bottom line is, if you're trying to keep a job as an employee, I would just sit them down and basically show them your paperwork and let them know that you're removing yourself from the element of paying taxes. Here's the WABEN, cancel the W-4. We do a W-8BEN as a state citizen. There's not one that's properly designed. So don't just go grab a W-8BEN and just fill it out and hand it to your employer, number one. Number two, if you haven't gone through what it takes to be a state citizen, and I did not say a state national, I did not say an American national, I did not say a national of the United States, I said a state of the union citizen. If you haven't done the paperwork to properly be a state of the union citizen, and you have not handled your adhesion contracts, and you have not dealt with the IRS specifically on 3 different levels, the first level with the IRS is a revocation of election. The second level is a notice of status. The third level is a removal of signature, removing the authorization of them to sign 1040s on your behalf as the trustee, and removal of your signature from every 1040 and every W-4 that you've ever done with them. We do those things for the people through His Advocates. You have to dot your I's and cross your T's. You cannot, listen, people, you cannot just take a WABEN pulled off of the IRS website and go to your employer and change your status because you're an American national. Don't do it. You will find yourself in a poo-poo of trouble. You have to dot your I's and cross your T's. Now, are there ways to get it accomplished? Of course, 100%. It's the level of the fight, it's the level of the ignorance, and sometimes you get pushback. And, but if they were to fire you because of a status change and because of you filling out a WABEN, you have one heck of a discrimination case. Just know that. But also know we have been mistrained our entire life, and that lady or that guy in the department just don't know any better. So don't argue with them and come at them with negativity. Try to approach this in a form and fashion that actually makes these people happy and like they're excited because they can do it for themselves at a later date and time. You know what I mean? That's kind of really the approach that we need to be having. Okay, second question. My questions tonight was about purchasing land and if it should be a trust or the steps about a land patent. David, I did address that. I'm sure you wrote this question prior to me addressing that question on that already. So for people watching this, just go to a couple questions I'm going to talk about. I'm going to retitle it, and you just got to go back about 15-20 minutes on this video that you're watching if you're watching this in the future. But we will individualize this question. And David, if you want, post that question if you can't find it for whatever reason, or if you're technically not inclined, post it to support@hisadvocates.org and request that, and we'll post the video link for you and where to watch it at. Okay. Okay. Should I get general liability insurance under my name or the foundation's name for one-man handyman business, and the same for getting bonded? Landon, I talk to people about this kind of stuff all the time. First, when you come out and you're private and you have a handyman business, people, they want to see these and trust me, I've asked this question a lot to people that are in that type of field business that you're in. How often do people actually ask for your bond? How often do they actually ask for the liability insurance? And, if that is a big worry and somebody were to have issue, if it were me, I would keep an active LLC. It's obviously going to cost you every year for the LLC. It's going to cost you for the insurance, and you're going to have to file a return on that LLC. Obviously, you're not going to pay taxes because the amount of money coming through, it's not going to really matter because you're only going to be trying to appease one or two or three people to get that particular job. The reality is, there's all kinds of things that you can do on the private side, including, but not limited to, a bond that you can put up that looks very official and it's legit. It's just private. It's not public, and it's not insurance. Number one. Number two, you can actually have them sign a contract directly to, and what I would call a private workers agreement. And you're taking the element of the jurisdiction out, and you're also taking out the element of them being able to sue you. Or you just do everything through the foundation and that we create for you, and you still have a private workers agreement and quote unquote bond, and you are contracting with them directly. And I have some people that will show them the bond over here and show them the liability insurance, and then they give them the contract over here in the name of the foundation, and they and that's not deceiving, okay? Because you write literally on the foundation invoice receipts the name of the LLC, and you can call it a wholly owned subsidiary of XYZ Foundation. Now, and you just got to make sure the paper trail matches, but now they're making a check out to the foundation, and now you're not having that element of a public side potential disaster down the road, or a public side need for a filing of a tax return, or a public side anything. So this question is common, but there isn't anybody that is running into issues with in relation to how are they able to perform or look to a customer. Most customers just want to see that you're above reproach. Most customers just want to see you have good Yelp rating. Most customers just want to see that you're doing it right. And when you have them sign a private agreement, and for the performance upon whatever work that you're going to do at whatever hourly rate that you're going to do it, they're happy with that. And I personally have never asked for a bond um, at all from anybody that I've done business with, because I'm not a suing kind of a guy, that's just me personally. But there's no negativity to not having a bond. There's no negativity for not having personal liability insurance, because when you're living in the private, there's no way that you're going to get sued. And if they were to figure that out, meaning where you live, how to process serve you, you're not operating anything in that name. So therefore you are 100% um, bulletproof from a standpoint of being asset protection. See, people in the living in the private program recognize the asset protection benefits of going through the living in the private program. We completely privatize everything for you. It's that, well, you do the work, we help you. It's privatizing the house, the cars, the insurances, the everything goes into the private. So if somebody were to file a suit on you, and let's say they win, there's no way they're going to attach a bank account. There's no way they're going to attach your home. So that element of that need in your mind for yourself, I'm probably thinking you're doing it for them so you can get the bid. But nevertheless, it's for yourself. There's no real need because you're basically bulletproof. And I don't really ever talk about that component a whole lot, but asset protection, those guys out there teaching it using LLCs and these different structures, jokes, absolute jokes compared to this program. This program, there's nobody that's getting sued, nobody that's losing dollars and cents from being sued, being a party in a court case. None of that stuff happens because everything is private. There's no registered process serving agent for a foundation, and then go on and on and on. You cannot attach a foundation bank account because of the liabilities of a man over here or liabilities of a corporation over here, even if your name's on the bank account, period. Is B of A still the best place to open a bank account? It appears banks may be changing their policies to require more stringent proof, all in the name of fighting crime, guilty until proven innocent. No, there's some other banks. There's some other banks that are out there that are doing it. I don't want to say them right now live, but go ahead, Sonny, and hit us up on the back office and we'll talk about it. Bottom line is, B of A is just easy. And but at the same time, they're always trying to gain jurisdiction over the accounts and different ways in which you got to recognize and you got to you got to realize for yourself. So yeah, I agree. I have a question. I have a question about a teen child who wants to get a job without filling out the W-4 or dealing with the IRS. It's not really a question. Are you asking how to? They would have to be private. They would have to not have to have the Social Security addressed, the IRS addressed if they've ever had a job before. But it's doable. Explaining the exact procedures, we pretty much already did it on another question on what to do with the HR department once you are private. Hello, I am new to the group and I've been trying to gather information and learn 2 quick questions. Is it necessary to have a foreign trust for additional protection? That's actually a good question because there's a lot of people out there that are selling that 98 number to gain a foreign trust. I want to just say something to you. Anything outside of the United States corporation is foreign. So if it's got a California address, it's foreign. what brings it into the jurisdiction of the United States or any other nation is registration. So a foreign trust, it's a quasi sale with an extra layer of unneeded Kevlar because somebody went to Paris, got a address, and got an EIN number 98 unnecessarily to get a foreign unregistered trust open. The element of registration and unregistration are the only things that you need to worry about when, and also obviously the way that you open up a bank account and also the way that you get the tax ID number, all of which we help people with in a foundation. I look at foundations as another level above a trust because you're dealing with an element of something that belongs to God. And even the IRS recognizes that they are outside of that jurisdiction. You can go look at the 508c1as under IRS code. There's no liabilities to file a return. What they're not really telling you is that a unregistered private anything has no obligation to file a return. That's just straight up. It's when you put something into the public, you get their stamp, their seal, and their registration, it becomes theirs. So therefore you need to file a return. And that's what just a lot of people fail on and not realize. But the second part of your question is there any do-it-yourself option for the living in the private program? That's a great question. Latoya, listen, when we have people pay us to do the living in the private, and I'm not poo-pooing people. I'm not trying to take away from people. And God knows I am thinking of one specific dude right now. I love him to death. He's fun and cool dude. People don't listen. They don't read the instructions. They fly half cocked. And even the people that read the instructions all the way through, there's so many nuances. We're trying to get something that's automated, much cheaper, and where support is vast and online, and 100% where they're able to go to a video format and watch videos. We've created almost 2,000 of these kind of Q&A type videos. It's not easy. And this is not easy, especially like when you're dealing with properties, you're dealing with land, you need an expert, you need help. Or you're dealing with pushback, you need an expert, you need help. You're dealing with the United States Post Office, you need help. And we can't figure out how to help people on a package that we can just say, go for it. Here you go. Fill these docs out and do it. And when people did that, in my personal opinion, watching what they did with the old TT stuff back in 2008 for the UCC processes, a lot of people got in trouble. A lot of people were filling out things wrong, doing shortcuts, not doing reservations on their payment bonds, not doing reservations on anything. They had charges filed against them because they didn't put without recourse on certain things. They didn't have a second set of eyes helping them. It was somebody selling a package for $1,000, them going to a weekend training. It's just not. It's not a feasible thing. Now, if we had maybe a 3 or 4 day event in Vegas where we charged and we got a big room and we had people that were in the living in the private program that have already gone through it and they were willing to support us, and we were able to have big computer screens and do Q&As and help them all the way through with their paperwork, something like that might work. But the nuancy stuff, Latoya, is you're changing your status, you're coming out, and our members don't get hassled. And I say that boldly because we have dotted the I's and crossed the T's. God has done amazing work with this ministry, and we're going on our 13th year. No complaints. And that's because we've dotted our I's and crossed our T's and gone through a lot to learn this kind of stuff and what we're doing. This is not to be taken lightly. And therefore, you have to have the experience of other people that have gone through the whole thing. Like we just onboarded a new gentleman, Todd. Hope you're here watching. And he went through the whole thing, and he's a multimillionaire. I'm outing you, Todd, because you're a successful businessman. You've done a lot, but it's a guy that went through the living in the private and with the lenses of a I daughter and T crosser businessman who's put a lot away, now has gone through and dealt with the securities and dealt with the retirement accounts and dealt with the bank accounts. And he's on this other side and he's like going, that's a lot of work. On Sunday for next Tuesday, we're doing an interview with a retired Hall of Fame NFL football player who's come all the way out through this ministry. And that'll go live next Tuesday. I don't normally do these things because I want people's privacy to remain private. But I want people to realize that the people that are trying to become free are just like you and me. You know, I always say to people, we're not sovereign citizens. Ben Franklin was not a sovereign citizen. He was a true state citizen, true American. And there are people just like us that are realizing you do not have to pay the IRS. You do not have to be the surety and the collateral for the debt of a fallen nation. You do not need to be a United States citizen giving homage to the largest, most corrupt organization in the world's history. I didn't say the United States of America. I said the United States Corporation, because of the structure in which it's being held in a bankruptcy and the banks control and own it. And you're the surety and the collateral. Listen, this is no joke. Latoya, you don't want to mess around. I get it. You don't have money. Listen, go call our office, make a deal, and say what you can afford. And we are honoring people that want to come out and we just say, do your best to make every payment because we are going to work on you as if you paid in full. And so we help people come out no matter what their situation is. So don't let that be a hiccup for you, but you need help. There's no way to really get this done without somebody there to carry you through it and who's been through it. So I hope that helps. Can a document be put into public record by publishing it as a public notice in the official county newspaper? Yeah. If you're worried about the active state, let me know. We've got questions now on that. But yeah, you can put a document into, but how are you going to put hundreds of documents into a newspaper? You know what I'm saying? So got to consider that. Do I move my LLC into the private? You can, but you're going to move the assets. You're going to close the LLC potentially. And if you have any questions or issues, you can reach out, and we do all kinds of things in reference to helping people shut their companies down, move them into a private trust foundation, UBT, unincorporated business trust, whatever. We're here to help you guys. But that's a very generic type of question that takes a little bit more work than just being able to identify, because there might be licenses involved, there might be insurance issues involved, there might be different things that we've got to talk through. So just know that. Over on the YouTube side, how can a father or mother that is a state employee FET, their undocumented, unregistered child on a state employee health insurance without getting a birth certificate. They can't. And the reality, Logan, is we're trying to come out and really, why do you want state supported health insurance for a child anyway? You know, um, I'm not poo-pooing that, because when I was younger, insurance for my child was very important. Today, knowing what I know about the insurance system and the hospital system and all that stuff, I would think twice. I'd probably get an emergency plan only. And we actually have private insurance policies. I know you don't want to hear that because that's free when it comes from the state, but there's repercussions of having those benefits from the state as well. There's serious repercussions. Jurisdiction 101. So how do you be in the private as a mom or a dad or a child if your child and or the mom and dad are on state assistance to any degrees? There are ways of doing it, but they're not going to do that properly. They're not going to have proper form and effect on the application as a private state citizen. But the reality is, the one receiving the benefit is the birth certificate of the child. It's not the child. The one that's receiving doing the contract and signing on behalf of the all caps name on the application is the birth certificate, and the mom and dad are signing as, you know, the liability on that stuff, saying I'm receiving these benefits for my child. And so therefore you're allowing for a jurisdictional position to take form over you when you have these benefits. So that's why I wouldn't. But we have insurance where you don't have to have real insurance, where you don't have to have, now listen to me, everybody. This is the coolest thing since sliced bread. If you really want insurance, where you do not need to have a period in time in which you need to wait to have something be approved or worked on. We're the only ones in the country that has an insurance company, because it's a package plan and because of who HISadvocates is and the amount of people that we have, where you can get insurance, real insurance, without using a social, and guaranteed acceptance, pre-existing conditions. Think about those things. Cancer is, I think, the only one that they do not do a pre-existing condition with. But if you got a cancer, there's people in this ministry that are 100% successful at helping people on the private side in dealing with cancer. And I know people do not want to hear that, but then that's just a fact pattern that is very real. And but again, we are on YouTube, so who knows what's going to happen with this video. But the bottom line is, people all the time are being healed right now from cancer, and on the private side basis, they're not in the public. I guess this is a long-winded answer to an easy question, but I would not have a state assistance to any degree. The plans are cheap. You know, you can get emergency insurance coverage for a child with relatively inexpensive. If you got a child with an issue and you're trying to get the state assistance because of a pre-existing condition, I would go private still and just spend the money and not have that benefit, and then still take the time to come out and stop using the government and start being self-governed. And I know that's hard for people, especially these days. You know, we're coming into some changing times in markets, so I get it. Hope that helps. Kelby, have you heard of the Trust Arc channel? No. Send that channel link to Kelby at hisadvocates.org if you would, please. Thanks, MT. Okay. Next question. Once you have the land out of the county, will you need permits to build, or have to worry about the EPA or other governmental agencies not allowing you to build a house? So, David, if you have land that's not a party to a county, there's no lawful requirement for you to pull a permit with the county or with the city to get anything done on that property, period. I know that there's attorneys are pulling out their hair right now listening to that. That's because they are programmed to think that way. But what you asked was a very specific question. If it's not in the county registry, there is no jurisdiction over that property, period. Period. What are they going to do? How are they going to gain jurisdiction over it? By that time, you don't have a mailbox. By that time, you don't, you've got that property free and clear of all encumbrances. Now, you're going to obviously want to use a professional construction crew, and they might, most don't, but they might have a problem not having permits, but most don't. But there is no lawful requirement to get permission. And listen to me. There's 60 people listening. I really want you to hear what I'm about to say. If you think I'm full of crap about private versus public, you think I'm full of crap about taxation in the element of a PMA or a foundation or something that's unregistered, go back to Disney, Walt Disney, who found a guy in Anaheim who they couldn't acquire his land patent. They couldn't force him to sell because he had a land patent. Got that notion in his head, went to Florida, procured a county-sized piece of patent. County-sized patent. What does Disney not have to do? Pay taxes at all. To whom? The state. Why? Because they're a membership organization and private. I guarantee there's public side elements of what they do over there. And there may be even allowing the local law enforcement, which I've seen the local law enforcement drive on their land. But you know what? They are not allowed to pull people over on Disney's property. Sheriffs are not allowed to pull people over. Now, you harm another individual, I'm sure they can do something about it with Walt Disney's permission. Walt Disney does not pay state taxes on that property, on that land. Walt Disney does not pay membership taxes. Walt Disney does not pay any kind of taxes whatsoever for that land and what they sell on that land. So prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. What is DeSantis trying to do? Make an edict over here on a public side as if he's got jurisdiction over a patent? Go pound sand, DeSantis. You unfaithful, unloyal mooch. He was unfaithful to Trump. That's why I say that. Bottom line, guys, what we're talking about was proved on a global scale by Walt Disney World. What I'm saying to people around the world is now being proved. I had no idea about that until I went to go visit a major doctor on the Florida coast there. And I got to hear all this going on a taxi cab through Walt Disney. I'm like, shut the front door. Do a little bit of research, do a little bit more. You're going to find out what I find out. And you're going to realize there is no jurisdiction over Walt Disney World by the state of Florida. What does that say about what I'm saying? It validates, verifies, next levels everything that we're talking about. We have big companies on the private side doing business in the millions of dollars, and they don't report to the IRS. Why? They don't have to. There is no jurisdiction. It's not just implied, guys. It's a choice. You're using one of their entities, you better pay. You're using your all caps name and you're doing a W-4, you better pay. That belongs to them. It doesn't belong to you. You're using something that belongs to God that you're the fiduciary for. You put the property in that name. You're able to pull the property out of the county recorder, or you get the exemption because it's a church. Come on. Come on. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. You can't. You can't. I've been doing this too long. And Walt Disney World is just the icing on the cake of the largest entity in the world proving me right. Period. I say that humbly, but with certainty. What can I do to my existing property to not pay any property taxes or capital gains? Property taxes has already been addressed in questions previous. Capital gains, you would put the property in the name of the foundation, and you can even do it while it's while you have a loan on it. but the foundation does not have a capital gains requirement. The problem that people may be going through at some point in the future is the theft of funds. Um, and I haven't seen this. Okay, we're hypothetical at this point, but down the road where they try to control this at the escrow level and just try to do a prepaid tax at the escrow level upon sale, they can't lawfully if it's in the name of a foundation. You know what I'm saying? But there may be an attempt, and like I'm saying, that's the only way I can see it happening, as an attempted theft at the point of an escrow closing. So don't worry about that right now. Just get it into a foundation name as soon as possible and start distancing yourself from that. And then if you want, you can apply for the exemption at the county so you don't have to pay the property taxes. Those are the two quick ways. And trust me, they're going to fight you on the property tax element a little bit, but it's people, and like Latoya previously asked that question, people will severely fail if they don't have support here, especially in this element, because how do you handle a county? There's a lot of work. It's a lot of questions. Why we don't create a product around this. We just give it the deed away that we know is recordable. We give that away to people that are in the living in the private, because they already have a support system that they can ask questions about that deed through and to. And so we help them. But the bottom line is, people that are wanting to pull their property out of county, you think they're just going to say, hey, congratulations, you figured it out, you're going to get off the tax roll. No, they fight, they lie, they cheat, they steal. We got them cornered in multiple cases, you know, from a standpoint, literally in a lawsuit, one of them, where they can't do anything about it. So they're claiming literally against the member that he's practicing law without a license. That's literally where they went to when they couldn't get what they needed done, and he won. Now they're trying to clip him on practicing law without a license. He's gonna win that too. But I'm just saying, that's the funny thing about it all. But I hope that helps. I haven't perfected my status yet, but I jumped through all the hoops with back office on drafting up the paperwork for the deed of my foundation. Well, the fact that I haven't perfected my status be problematic for me putting my house or my property in the foundation? No, two separate things totally. Your property is its own entity. You are your own entity. So and the fact that you're not a state citizen has no bearing on whether your house can be private or public. That's first part of the second part of the question. Also, can I make the purchase with $20 silver instead of anything you want? Yeah, 100%. Good question. My wife and I were married in Thailand and do not have a U.S. marriage license. How does the LPP handle this? We just don't address it. You're fine. You know, sometimes wives don't want to do a rescission on the marriage license agreement. Sometimes they do. That's a whole nother conversation, but you can always come to terms and agreement in any of those cases for the women or the men that are concerned about giving up the license because of not having support from a state judge or help in the event of a divorce. Tell me, with the information you provide, why do you think you are still walking around? Jesus. You must be on some kind of list, detained. I'm on every list, proudly. Um, Period. Anonymous attendee. You don't scare me. Why do we have to get a foundation when we go about the national state citizen process of our new private life? There's no national state citizen. It's state of the union citizen. And your question is reflecting two separate things. One is the status for you personally as a state citizen. One is the ability for you to operate in commerce. That's why. Plus, there's no mechanism unless you're quieting the title on the BC, there's no mechanism for you to use the name, the registered organization name on the BC to record things into. Like the foundation can own a property, the foundation can own a car, the foundation can own a business, can conduct business. If you were to conduct business in your registered organization name and you just did state citizenship paperwork and you didn't quiet the title on the BC and become the true owner of the birth certificate through a court process and a judgment, then you're going to be using a name that they own, and therefore you would have no recourse and they can come and take your stuff easily. That's hopefully that helps. Can you use a PMA instead of a license? You can use a private membership association for any kind of business, including but not limited to being a doctor. You're hiring the doctor on the private side, not his license on the public side. And there are doctors that do this, and they hang the license on the wall, and then you enter in through the back rooms of their office, and you've now filled out all the paperwork to become a part of their private side. You're doing full releases of liability. You're doing everything that is required to be in the private, not in the public, with that doctor, and he performs whatever he does from a skill set standpoint as a doctor. So there's no reasons necessarily to, like, even me as a broker's license or having a broker's license, there's no reason for me to use it. I keep it if I'm going to be doing a big transaction and I want to keep points and fees and different things because they are wanting to utilize the DRE forms. But the reality is I have choices of being private or public. I don't need to use licenses to buy houses. I don't need to use licenses to sell houses. I don't need to use licenses to do private capital. And so you can use a PMA all day long for anything. And a PMA is a generic term for a foundation, a unincorporated business trust. Those are all PMAs. It's like a generic private membership association where people are becoming a part of a private body politic of people or body of people, to where they're all agreeing to the rules of this club. It's kind of like the bar. Yes, the bar is private. It is not public. The bar is not even a corporation anymore. Homeowners don't tend to ask, but property management companies do about insurance. Yeah. I didn't see a question there, Landon. Veronica, go ahead and ask that question to our back office on the bank account. How is the approach different when taking somebody to small claims court to enforce a contract? It's not. There's no difference. You can enter into or remove yourself out of any jurisdiction at any time you wish. So if you wanted to bring somebody into a small claims court, you're not necessarily giving up your status as a state citizen, but you're giving up your rights over that contract, period. I do a lot of subcontracting work, and I have to provide $1 million of insurance as our way to have insurance to provide the company I am a sub out from. So is the insurance under your name, David, or is it the name of the LLC? That's my question. And if it's in your cap's name, they're public and private can meld at any time. Public and private can work together at any time. Those are just structures that need to be kind of talked through. So if you have more specific questions that need to be worked through, we can help you. The bottom line is you may be running it through an LLC, and then you just get paid through your foundation. We were talking about it a little bit before, because sometimes you still need to carry the licenses for whatever purposes you're trying to accomplish, and sometimes you don't. But you can have the license, have the coverage, the insurance coverage, and then still receive payments on the private side. If my guns were all purchased in the state of Colorado, does that not require you to register them, but obviously still require the ATF background check? Is there still a firearms license that needs to be canceled for each of them? So that is one of those questions where there's so many questions that I have. Questions are, did you fill out a firearms application on each one? In what state? In what name? Um, were they purchased privately between you and a purchaser or a seller? What did you get for a contract? Did the seller notice the DOJ? It's just too many questions. If you're buying a firearm, that's a registered gun. A firearm is a registered gun. It means the state owns that gun. So the Glock created a series of registration numbers, gave them to the state. You're filling out a firearms application saying this gun is now owned by the state. You are in use of the gun until the state otherwise feels different. So regarding guns and firearms, there's a lot of questions, and you got to tiptoe through this one and be very precise. If even when you're purchasing 80% lowers, some of those uppers are still registered, registration numbers like a Glock OEM. So there's nuancy kind of things you got to really be thinking through, like like in Turkey, they can build a 45 caliber, beautiful handgun, precision, $25. Is that a firearm? No, it's not registered. Go look at the definitions. Don't take my word for anything. Go look at the definitions. Is there a requirement for you to register? There may be if you're a U.S. citizen. There is not one if you're a state citizen. Do law enforcement know that? No, they're being trained that there's a group of sovereign citizens that think that they're outside of the jurisdiction, instead of being trained that there is actually something called state citizenship with hundreds of Supreme Court rulings to support it. Like Ben Franklin was not a U.S. citizen. So the ramifications of dealing with law enforcement, dealing with hyperactive DAs who hate conservative white males, have to be taken into consideration. So that's why you need to be private yourself 100% before you even start playing around with the way that you're going to conduct business on a firearm, because a firearm is already theirs. You get it? It does not belong to you. A gun built on the private side with your own hands that is got no registration numbers on it can be yours 100%. And I would even put that into a private trust, not into your name. So those are things that are hard to ask and answer without dialogue. Hope you can respect that. As a follow-up to the previous question, I'm in a concrete business and do 5 to 6 million per year. Carrying insurance is a must for me, as well as an occasional bond for cities. Would you recommend using a separate foundation for my business? Yes. But also I'd recommend you getting a consultation with us, and we'll apply the consultation to any purchases that you have to do or structures you have to do. You may do a next level UBT, unincorporated business trust. There's different benefits of doing different things, but the bottom line is you can always meld the public and the private, keep the LLCs, and work with the foundation on how you get paid, making it a wholly owned subsidiary of the foundation, meaning the LLC. So there's ways of getting it done. I recently purchased a new vehicle, tried to register it in South Dakota. The dealer in Texas refused to do so because I have a Texas driver's license. Did you? Okay, so first and foremost, don't worry about that. You didn't buy the vehicle outright, Dave. You got a loan against it, which means, I'm guessing, which means you don't control where the registration is. If it were me and I was buying the vehicle outright at a Texas dealership, I would have told them to pound sand. I would have said, give me the MSO, manufacturer statement of origination, from the manufacturer, pick it up on a flatbed and drive it away from the dealership. Otherwise, if you're getting a loan, you're not telling them where to register because the state controls that transaction because the loan provider controls the registration. So you can't tell them to register something that has a loan on it in South Dakota because it's not yours. But the second you own that vehicle, you can transfer the title to South Dakota all day long, all day. How does this affect our crypto assets? We put crypto into a trust or an LLC. Why LLC if that keeps it in the system of America? Correct. I thought a trust would keep us out of the system. Okay. So you bought crypto, you bought it in your name, and you put it into an exchange that you registered as an LLC. That means the LLC owns whatever assets are in that exchange, and that means that the government can seize those assets at will, just if it's in your name or the LLC name. If it were me, and remember something, guys, everybody thinks that you're private when you have crypto. You're not. Every transaction is traceable. And so you can't think that you're private when you're not, when something is traceable. So it's not how you purchase something. It helps to purchase with a foundation, crypto. More importantly, getting that crypto into a cold storage, a hard wallet, off of an exchange where you are the bank. And then what we're doing is when it comes time, we're going to show you how to exit using a foundation through a foreign exchange into your local bank account, into your foundation, and all tax-free. Hey, brother, blessings to you and good evening. Thank you, Rick. We moved all our vehicles in the foundation and are getting ready to move our property and home. You guys did my transfer paperwork. If they insist on paying property tax, do we just pay, or what do you recommend after 3 years of non-payment of taxes? They sell your land. Okay, so it's a good question, Rick. I'm glad you asked. This is why people can't be doing this stuff on their own. When you're putting property in the name of the foundation, you're not coming off a tax roll. Period. Just because you move something into a private church entity name does not mean that you're all of a sudden exempt. Taking the property out of the county recorder or taking the property and applying for the exemption because you're a church is the only two ways to get it done. Now, here in California, 501c3s, where you put a property in the name of a 501c3, automatically that exemption exists. Now, the property doesn't have a requirement to pay taxes, meaning the owner, but I want you to understand something. They own the 501c3, so this is why they do that. And if you read the language in a 501c3 and you understand you're getting the benefits of a non-tax today, it's because all the assets of the 501c3 belong to the government. But my point is saying there are only two mechanisms are to pull it out of the county recorder or to get the exemption applied for as a church with the county recorder. And that's just a fact. Mike, I addressed that at the beginning of this. So replay this. Your question was, is there a better way to move the land into the private than pulling my land patent forward? You can't pull a land patent forward, Mike. That's a personally 2 cents. Guy who's done land patent seminars, met all these guys, talked this through. I'm a licensed real estate broker. I know title better than most real estate brokers, most real estate attorneys. I don't agree with the elements of people pulling a land patent forward. I don't agree with that. I don't think it exists. There's no law to support it. There's people with Supreme Court rulings that are bringing forward patents where actual owners are the patent holders that are in the case. You making a claim to a region of property that patent that you can now be an assign when that patent's an actual trust indenture and there's an assignor and an assignee, and you're not a family member directly tied to that patent, I don't know how people are thinking they could take a property, record it in the county, record it, and bring a patent for it. It just does not make logical sense. And it's just me learning. And I've had to figure things through on this stuff. Now, you can pull a property out of the county recorder's office and you're sitting on somebody else's patent. You're sitting on a allodial title, basically, of some patent that belongs to somebody else. Hold on one second. Give me just 1 second. Give me a sec, guys. Sorry, I got a lot of noise in the background right now. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but let me know if you can. All right. So again, Mike, just go back and listen to the initial part of the conversation and of this message. I talked on the real estate transactions in depth. Hope that helps. If next question, I'll put if I am a ministry, can I put my land into the ministry to pull it from the county? And how do I do that? I've already addressed that. Again, go back to the beginning of this video and watch. I spent about 15 minutes on that question. Do I have to be a 501c3 to get advantages of a 501c3? Yes and no. The elements of being a private church in law and being tax exempt, even but not limited to property taxation, exist and apply to a private foundation, a private church, if you will. So they can't hold to a church that's only a registered church the benefits and not release those benefits to a private entity. And we've proven this in not just things that we are doing with state tax, property tax, but you have to kind of, this is goes back to what Latoya was asking before. Can I get a set of docs and do this on my own? The nuances of what do you do when they do X? What do you do when they do X over here? And it's moves and counter moves. You need professional help, people that have done it and gone through it. And so those are things that it's not just a blanket yes, no answer. But you can be a private church and get all the benefits of a 501c3 because you were just plain tax exempt. And I would go beyond saying that you're not just tax exempt. You are not allowed to pay tax. How does that sound? Thank you, Rick. How can we go about a UCC codes, use the money that is owed to us instead of our income? I don't answer those questions, Eva. The private trust accounts we don't deal with. Can I be a state national and not a citizen of the United States? Steve, it's a state of the union citizen. Don't use the word national anymore. It's a trap. And there are so many Supreme Court rulings that talk about that. And I'm still working on shepherdizing about 75 cases that talk about it. But just for the record, there's specific case law speaking to that. Yeah, you can be a citizen of a particular state and not a citizen of the United States. And there's case laws that talk about a state citizen is not a taxpayer. So we're going to walk through that for people so they can understand truly what it means and how much law they have behind it, because it's extensive. Can we still become a private citizen even if we owe on car loans? Yes. That's two separate things. Does becoming a private citizen change anything in how we handle loans? Yes, absolutely. So that's a great question. My personal feeling is one of faith-based, because the loans are prepaid. In every case, when you do a car loan, you're prepaying the bank. The bank goes to the trust account, the birth bond account, to draw against through the Federal Reserve window so that they can get prepaid. I did a 9-hour chain of title video. You can go to our, we unequivocally show where everything is a prepaid transaction in this nation. You can't create more debt. You have to pay the banks. And so when you're doing a note, you're actually creating a check. Whether it's a car note, whether it's a home note, you're creating a check, and the banks are cashing it and then giving you a quote unquote loan. They're not giving you a loan. So, but one has nothing to do with the other. So my point I'm trying to make is, from a faith-based standpoint, you're called to come out. And I can only ask, like, why? What is the reason why we're called to come out? Because we're giving tithes, we're donating our time, our energy, our money, our children, our cars, our homes, everything that should belong to the Lord. You're donating it to the Fed, to the corp. And the corp is using a couple trillion a year in black ops accounts for a lot of different things. Pentagon can't account for 38 trillion. I want to ask you, how many people are associated to that blood money? Meaning, how many people have died from that money? How many people have been injected from that money? How many people have, with GMOs, with foreign wars, with invasions, how many people are a party to that whore? So from a biblical perspective, and I say this with all due respect, coming out does not mean you play ball with your private offset account. It does not mean that, in my opinion, that you continue to use the social and get loans. I have not gotten a loan in 15 years, and I do not need to get a loan. They didn't need this kind of service for 7,000 years or whatever it was since human beings have been here. This is something that in the last several hundred years, the creation of money and banks and instruments and corporations and all these fake things that don't amount to anything and put you in debt and put you as the surety, which the Bible for sure says you're not supposed to be. Don't make a pledge for another. Don't get in debt. You can go through all the biblical verses about that. So for me, I don't want to enrich the whore. I don't want to get in debt. Therefore, I do not use the social. And can you? If you do, you have to do the form correctly. You have to be sure that you're doing the application correctly. And that's something that we teach people how to do applications, but I specifically would not be willing to help somebody to try to gain access to funds. It's not because I'm trying to be a jerk or anything. I just don't want to help the whore. You go charge your credit card for $1,000. The bank gets that 1,000 plus an extra 1,000 from you. You create a note on your home, the bank pays it. They get paid on it. Then they get paid by you. Then they put it into a securities, put a CUSIP number on it and put it in make it a registered security, and they start trading on it, and you hypothecate that 30 to 50 times. Think about what I'm saying. Who is in charge of the deaths in this world? The families, the evil. Many of these guys at the top. I'm not saying they're all evil, but many of these guys that are doing these things, they're the cartel of cartels. They're the pacers are the top. And I know for a fact I don't want to stand before God and say I disobeyed. I kept playing in that system, and kept making my body the surety and the collateral for a debt just so I can make it a little bit easier. I will assure you, no matter what, if you're getting a loan, you're making your life harder. You're not making it easier. Save your money, work hard, save your money, pay cash for things. I say it respectfully. One of my children was born in Germany and has a report of birth abroad. How does this handle differently than a BC? Same thing. That's all we need. Just need proof of citizenship, and that's it. That's your both parents are U.S. citizens. He was born abroad. And he's a U.S. citizen. We can take it from there to the state citizenship. Is my point. Um, how do we marry without being involved with the government? So simple. Will you marry me? Yes. Thank you. Make a contract. Stand before God and two witnesses and make your pledge. We've done it for 7,000 years, 6,000 years, whatever. This is the first 100 years we've ever thought we needed to get man's approval for anything. You know what I mean? So if you're worried about it, get a contract, make your pledge, put a ring on that finger, and you're married. It's called matrimony. Thank you, Rick. Can't hear any noise in the background. She talks loud. I talk loud. Apologize. You didn't offend me, Peter. I asked you, I'm still walking around. English is my second language. No, Peter, Peter, I actually appreciate that question. No many people don't put that out. I am truly protected. That's all I got to say, man. I am truly protected. And if I didn't continue to do what I'm doing, I would be in complete disobedience. And God would shake me to the core until I came back. I've had to go through a lifetime of knowledge and training and support and trials and hardship to get knowledge, to be able to help people. And there's no way I'm going to walk away from that or walk away from being obedient to God. That is much, much worse than what man could do to me. You know what I mean? So I wasn't thinking that you were being disrespectful whatsoever, brother. How do we start a true republic overnight in China? It's a lot of bodies, Joseph. You're going to need a lot of bodies, and you're going to need to. Those are the questions that require God. There are elements of what's going on in this nation that only God is going to be able to help us with. So, Joseph, if you want to meet the members of the Republic and what we've done here so that you can get something going, because right now a corporation is running your country. It's not the Republic of China. It's a corporation called the Republic of China. I want you to know that. So can you do it? You need a lot of bodies, a lot of people in agreement. And it's not, and you need a lot of God, especially with China. So we can help you from a documentation standpoint of what needs to be done. I'm going to be converting my semi-trailer into an insulated bunkhouse for homeless women. So thank you, bro. Or Kelly, thank you. In about a month, I need to get legal paperwork drafted up for the guest to sign to protect the property from liability from ringers they might send in. Kelly, I don't know what you're really asking. If you can rephrase the question a little bit. This weekend is deer season in many states. We are in Missouri. We have a heritage card number, and we have to buy a deer license to Do we have to do anything differently or watch out for when applying for the license? You know what's so funny is this is just another thing that's proof. It's like, and I don't know much about the hunting, but I have a couple friends that hunt and they tell me these things. And I find it fascinating that most of these deers are already pre-tagged. What is tagging? It's registering. I find it interesting that if you kill a deer or a buck, and whether it's tagged or not, you are required to go onto your app on your phone and report it where, when, how. And so you got to be very specific on the one that you want to kill. And so um, you don't have to do anything different if you're going to be operating in the realm of using a license. You just need to work within the constraints of what the license offers. If you're on your own land and you've raised deer yourself, and you have somehow, some way been able to keep them confined, that is your property. Deer running around rampant, who get caught, tagged, those are a part of the transaction. Deers that are private raised running on your land, somehow caged, meaning kept in somehow. I don't know how you're going to do that with a deer. That are untagged, unregistered, I guarantee are not a party to that license. Other than that, you probably agreed on the license that you will report any and all deaths of deer. But just know that that is just a more proof of registration versus unregistration, meaning you're looking at a deer that's been tagged. It belongs to the state. They've done the work. They've now created a licensed opportunity for you to go find that tag, kill that buck, and then report it as being yours. It's just proof. So if you have any more specific questions to like what to do, and just honor the contract or find an untagged one that is on your property, and then it's not a requirement under law of anywhere that I know of. Record your marriage in a family Bible. Yes, sir. How does 15 years military service and federal service complicate coming out of her? It doesn't. We have feds, cops, firemen, postal workers, NFL football players, big name celebrities slash whatever. No, there's doctors, lawyers, chiropractors, plumbers. We all want to be free. It's structure, knowledge, and understanding what to do, even in the active duty elements. You want to make sure that you steer clear of the so that's the only thing I would suggest. Anyway, I know it's not basically the answer. And Genesis 1:26, that is my scripture. And God says, let us have dominion over all the earth. Dominion means sovereign authority. Thanks, Rick. Appreciate that. Here's a great question. And it's going to be the last question. What would be the steps for parents expecting a child? How should they go about not giving up their rights? So that's an excellent question, because we have kids that are born private in bedrooms without birth certificates all day long. And those children can get a passport as a state citizen without a birth certificate. So, Peter, where the element of issue comes in is when you need to go to a hospital. And that is a hour-long conversation. I have spoken on it several times before. The bottom line is you do not want to sign the hospital paperwork. You do not want to sign a birth certificate, a live born record. And you do not want to give them a name. Now, if the hospital, here's the nuancy stuff that sucks. If the hospital knows your name and your dates of birth, then the hospital is going to report a John Doe or Jane Doe born, weight, amount, time, no name, with you as the parents to the state, quite possibly. That doesn't mean that that child necessarily has a birth certificate, but it has caused issues whereby knowing that we had a kid with no birth certificate born free, where we applied, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Department of State, where you get passports, wanted to see a letter of no record from the state. And the state said there was a record because the hospital performed a Jane Doe or John Doe for that particular child. And so that's just where all these different roads need to be talked about and discussed. So if it were me, I would have a kid in the private, and at all costs, I'm not telling you what to do, but your information known at that hospital puts your child into the public, even potentially if you do not sign anything. There are ways to get it removed because you did not give them permission to do that. But that's a fight, that's a legal battle, and then some. And then they're going to use the state statutes and codes to enforce that right for them to be able to record the BC, because that's something that they would need. But we help parents all day long in the private, administer counsel, whatever, to the and all you do is you just go find a midwife who's willing to do this at the home. But again, 50% of the time, complications come up or something happens and you got to go to the hospital. And I get it. But what I would do in my route to the hospital and at the hospital, I cannot say on this recordation. So if somebody wants to have a private conversation about what I would do, I'll be more than happy to have that. And then, even though I said that was the last question, I'll answer Kelly's. My mother made a lot of potential enemies in the county. She's cost the county more money in legal expenses in the last 20 years, probably in its history, and it all started over me. She died last year. I'm sorry. But there are still people in this county who would like to do me dirty. Well, Kelly, if you need some help, let us know. But you for sure want to be a part of our enforcement stuff that we're coming out with in the next week or so. We're going to be first doing foreclosure, and then we're going to be talking defense stuff in all kinds of areas, but stuff that really, really puts these public servants at on their heels. And so it's some of the best stuff that's out there. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. A lot of great stuff. I'm getting a little tired. My voice getting a little cracky and hungry. We are one of the things I do want to address. People always ask us, why do we charge for what we do? Well, we're not a business, but we're not a church that has parishioners paying 10% tithes or whatever their tithes. So we're self-supported ministry, and that's in our name, HISadvocates SSM, self-supported ministry. Nothing is free. When they shut us down on YouTube, we're now on Roku, Amazon, Google TV, Apple TV, Android, iPhone, Samsung TV, LG TV, and those cost money. Cost money for the preparations, the everything to get all this stuff put together and to build a team to support this. Costs money. We're doing our best to bring this as inexpensively as we can to the people, but there is a reality, and that is, if we want this message to get out to the world, we have to own and control the platform, and we do. You can find us as His Advocates TV on any of those. And I would suggest getting out there, finding it, downloading it to your phones, and soon we will be going live on your phones and on YouTube still, and on all those TVs. And it's because of that that we're also able to do sub-channel providers. So if anybody out there has some great channels that are looking to get on TV, YouTube channels that are looking to get on TV, send them my way. If they are supporting people in the capacity of truth or supporting people in the capacity of freedom, I'm definitely interested. Definitely interested. But all this stuff costs, and I work 7 days a week right now. And this is not an easy thing to do. And this is just, we're on the front lines of a lot of things. And I'm super proud of what we've done. I don't have any qualms with charging for this, because I have to pay salaries and different things. And it's not, it is what it is. We're here helping you, and we're trying to do it as inexpensively as we can. So God bless you guys. Thank you for being a part. We moved the VIP to next Monday, and we thank you for your questions. These are not easy questions to ask and answer, and most people don't know how to answer them. It is only experience and tens of thousands of members and thousands of foundations and hit and miss and try and fail that have allowed us to be able to answer these questions with logic, reason, and truth. And people that do go into the private get left alone. People that do use the foundations do not get garnished, do not get hit up, do not lose the assets that are within the foundations. This is the only ministry that I know of that knows and does what we do, and with certainty and expertise. So God bless you guys. Thank you. Refer your friends and families to our channel and to our website. Join for free on hisadvocates.org. Download our app to your phones, His Advocates TV, and get this message out. They are coming soon, and you need to be prepared, and you need to have what belongs to them given over to God, because when you die, can't take it with you. So why not give it to God right now, which passes to a fiduciary responsibility to your family through an operating agreement within the foundations. This is stuff that we do for people. So God bless. Thank you. Peace and blessings. And I hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you on the next Q&A, which will be a week from Monday. Every other week, we do these Q&As for existing members and new potential members. So looking forward to being able to answer more questions. God bless. Have a good night.